Chapter 495, 16th on the Heaven Board. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. The bright Treeman King was badly hurt from the unexpected sword. The hole in its trunk was 2 meters wide. However, Treeman had strong vitality. As long as its trunk was not broken, it would not die so easily. It's extraterritorial death. Hurry up, arrange the array. It shouted. Swoosh. The abyss ancient sword circled in void space, chopping obliquely with its long sword light. The sword edge collided with the trunk, causing sparks and a sound of friction. It was like hitting against an iron column. The trunks of Treeman Kings were tough, common weapons could not hurt them. However, the abyss ancient sword was no ordinary weapon, it was a holy sword. The bright Treeman King's trunk was chopped down. Only a long stump gushing blood remained on the ground. A strong Treeman King fell down in this way. Originally, the 4 Treeman Kings had intended to team up with other millennial Treeman and arrange the holy wood array for god destruction to kill Zhang Yuochen. However, with the death of the bright Treeman King, the array collapsed before they could even attack. And the other millennial Treeman had begun to flee, so it was impossible to continue to arrange the array. I don't think we cannot deal with the extraterritorial death. The 3 Treeman Kings looked at each other and immediately rushed forward. Each of them threw a fire vine. The vines changed into 3 long fire snakes. They rotated constantly and launched attacks from 3 different directions. The abyss ancient sword emitted a long sword light. It rotated rapidly in midair and formed a huge circle of sword chi, hundreds of meters in diameter. Swoosh. The sword chi chopped the fire vines. They were cut into pieces and flung away. Zhang Yuochen's martial soul mobilized the heaven and earth spiritual chi. His fighting ability improved so that he was comparable to monks at the 3rd change of the fish dragon realm. After all, his opponents were Treeman Kings. They were not monks in the fish dragon realm, or cruel savage beasts. They repelled his attacks and could only exert defensive actions. However, even with his current strength, he could only suppress them. It was not easy for him to kill them. He fought with them for an hour. Finally, he had the chance to hit the middle part of a Treeman King's trunk and kill it. Damn. The golden Treeman King has been killed by the extraterritorial death. The 2 of us cannot defeat him. Hurry up. Let's get out of here and return to the altar. We can only suppress him by turning to the tree and ancestor. The 2 Treeman Kings quickly returned to the hinterland of the Blackwood Field. The Treeman Kings had strong defensive power and were very fast. If they wanted to escape, it was difficult for Zhang Yuochen to kill them. You can't escape anymore. He raised a finger and pointed to the 2 runaway Treeman Kings. Bang! The whole space shook. It quickly broke apart and collapsed from the outside in. The 2 Treeman Kings were trapped in the collapsed space. They cried out. Their trunks shattered, and their leaves dissolved into fine powder. When space regained, they had completely disappeared. Above him, some leaves fluttered to the ground. The leaves were stained with blood. Alxinian was shocked and a bit sad. She somehow thought that Treeman should not be killed. She and Zhang Yuochen were intruders and they had destroyed the peaceful world. Group leader, why do we have to kill these Treeman? Is it just for military merits? Alxinian felt confused looking at the bloody stumps on the ground before her. Zhang Yuochen withdrew his sword, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. The battlefield of primitive world is cruel. There's no true or false, and no good or evil. Only the battle between creatures from 2 different worlds. He turned around and took a deep look at her. He said, if you are merciful, you shouldn't have come to the battlefield of primitive world. On the battlefield, there's only killing and being killed. If you're too merciful, you will likely be killed. Was the primitive world of Wood Spirit a battlefield of primitive world? Of course it was. Soldiers of primitive world of the Ministry of War fought with the Treeman superiors of the primitive world of Wood Spirit every year. Many people on both sides were killed or wounded. However, the primitive world of Wood Spirit was a relatively peaceful battlefield of primitive world. Its mortality rate was not that high. A real battlefield of primitive world could be 100 times crueler than the primitive world of Wood Spirit. A merciful person could not survive on the battlefield. Zhang Yuochen had been well prepared mentally, when he stepped onto the battlefield of primitive world. The reason he had come here was to harden himself. If it was possible to avoid bloodshed, he would not slaughter the innocent willfully. He would not raise his hands against the poor indigene of primitive world. He would only kill superiors if he could. There was a sensation below the stone tablet heaven board of the chaotic million-verse mountain. The stone tablet of heaven board was magnificent, standing at a height of 676 meters. It had stood atop the mountain from time immemorial. Many warriors gathered together in the square below to watch the change on the heaven board every day. If a name disappeared, it meant that the corresponding warrior had died or broken through to the fish-dragon realm. People paid close attention to the masters who had been famous for many years and ranked top 1,000 on the heaven board. It's amazing. Zhang Yuochen's military merits increased so fast. In just a few days, he reached 16th on the heaven board, and his military merits are up to 1,297,000 points. Zhang Yuochen, is he that young king from the eastern region? Of course, it's him. There may be many people with the same name, but only he can enter the top 20 of the heaven board at such a young age. A nearby young warrior sighed in recognition. At that speed, he will likely accumulate 30 million military merits soon and actualize the ultimate realm of the heaven realm. Not far away, someone laughed grimly. It's not so easy to actualize the ultimate realm of the heaven realm. Although the martial arts are thriving, only a few people can reach the realm. Everyone looked over at him. A yellow-robed man sat in a stone house on the edge of the square. He looked to be at least 20 years old and stood about 2 meters tall. His arms were long and half a palm longer than average. His 5 sense organs were 3-dimensional. With deep eyes and a straight nose, he looked very handsome. However, no one dared to get close to him. If anyone approached within 10 steps of him, he would display a strong murderous feeling. As a result, the people could not help feeling fear and had to draw back. Undoubtedly, those who could reach the chaotic million-verse mountain were not the weak. A few bold warriors ventured over and stood 10 steps away from him. He said, although only a few people can reach the realm, it's still possible for someone to accumulate 30 million points, inflict the cord of gods, and reach the ultimate realm. Take the example of the current Holy Queen of Majesty and Morality. She reached the ultimate realm 800 years ago. It's said that the corpses of the indigenes of primitive world she killed can be piled up into a hill, with blood flowing like a stream. Nearly all the creatures in the primitive world were killed. She obtained more than 90 million military merits, which is unsurpassable. Another example is the evil monk of death, the rebel of the Thousand Buddhas sect, 600 years ago. He also killed around 100,000 indigenes of primitive world and reached the ultimate realm. However, we now call him the evil ancestor of death, rather than the evil monk of death. In addition, the saintess of the demonic school, Ling for 300 years ago, the smart talent Liu Xu 200 years ago, the little holy king, Wanzai Oi 70 years ago, they all reached the ultimate realm. As the martial arts thrive, men of talent come out in succession. More and more warriors will reach the ultimate realm. It's not necessarily impossible for Zhang Yuochen to achieve that based on his natural gift and speed of accumulation. The yellow-clothed man laughed and took out a wine pouch. He drank some wine and put the pouch on the table. His eyes were cold, and he laughed again. He's indeed a talented person, but he's a luckless man. Someone on the heaven board is still superior to him. And if that person launches an attack, Zhang Yuochen will not live to actualize the ultimate realm. You're talking about Huang Shenyi, right? Another person said, Huang Shenyi is also a peerless genius. At his current speed of accumulating military merits, he will probably reach 30 million military merits within a year. In terms of current strength, Zhang Yuochen is still far from Huang Shenyi. The yellow-clothed man smiled and said, of course. Huang Shenyi encountered a huge opportunity when he practiced in the primitive world of Xuan Wu. He has powerful strength. Hu Li, second on the heaven board, can't withstand 3 movements. As for Zhang Yuochen, he only needs half a movement. Huang Yanjun and a group of young disciples from the East region Saint Mansions stood inside the crowd. When she heard this, She could not stand it anymore. She walked over and snorted. You probably think highly of Huang Shenyi. Zhang Yuochen is the top warrior of the Saint Academy in the eastern region. If they fight, the result is unknown.